salesperson is a very expensive person in your business and one of the hardest to recruit, to be honest. What I've seen a lot of companies make the mistake of is thinking that the salespeople are there to generate the leads. But for a startup, you're looking for recurring business models, things where you can go back to them with more services, different services, the same service. One of the advantages of being a startup founder is that you're a problem solver. You cannot sell to everyone. You can sell to the people who've got the biggest pain point. We're all seeing the Coldplay issue and everybody's doing avatar memes of that particular incident. Your avatar should not do anything that you would not do as a person.
If you were to advise founders, what practical advice would you give them when they are in the process of launching into new markets?
Okay, so
welcome back to Business Backstage, where we take you behind the scenes of the business and tech world to spotlight the experts, the practices, and the perspectives that power great companies. I am your host, Bukola Osuntuyi, and in this episode, we are diving into what I like to call the modern marketing equation. So it's a conversation that's at the intersection of sales strategy, AI integration, and go-to-market execution. Now, these are the real drivers behind the growth that we see in today's business landscape. So my guest today is someone who brings both depth and decades of experience to this space. Peter Dickinson is a seasoned business strategist. He's a fractional chief marketing officer and also a sales growth advisor who has worked with over 600 organizations across multiple sectors. And he has more than 25 years of experience, and he specializes in helping startups and scale-ups to align their sales and marketing strategies for sustainable growth. Peter is also the founder of Vision to Success. And most recently, Peter served as strategy lead and fractional head of industrial sales at Bender UK. He's also very passionate about helping businesses to unlock their growth potential in the age of intelligent execution. Peter Dickinson, it is a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Pleased to meet you, Bucky.
Awesome. When I was doing my background research on possible guests for this topic, I went through quite a number of bios, and what makes Peter stand out is not just his track record, but also how he continues to embrace innovation, particularly around AI. I'm really excited about today's conversation. It's going to be full of practical insights, hard truths, because that's what Business Backstage is about, and also thought-provoking ideas, especially for founders, marketers, and business operators who are just trying to make sense of the modern growth strategy. So let's get into it. When we met over Zoom first time, you told me that you were born in the 50s, and I was like, oh my God. I started to, calculate my age, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So basically, you have been around for a while now, and you are, very agile. So I'm just curious, what drives your commitment to staying ahead of the curve, especially in an era, of technological advancement? And what advice would you give to other very senior professionals like yourself, people who are hesitant to adapt to the changing times?
Okay. Well, it's quite simple. If you want to stay in the kitchen, you've got to learn the new tools. I think what drives me is that it's actually a really fun time to live in terms of what's happening with technology, what's happening with the world of work. I think it's very exciting. We lose one of our staff today because she's going freelance and she wants to grow and develop herself. Well, if she'd have tried that 20 years ago, that would have been really hard. But I've said, keep the computer, keep the monitor. This is our gift to you for your next stage of your journey. For me, that's, and also watching my daughter grow. She's now she joined me 10 years ago, and it's taken quite a while, not because we've had to change the business a few times, but anybody older, a senior person, it keeps you young, it keeps you fresh, because you've got to get up in the morning, you've got to do things. Whereas, if you then step back and if you retire or whatever, you do slow down. I love the sort of that energy that you have when you're working. And we're in really exciting times, and I'm loving the journey, to be fair. Just think about if we'd have tried this 5 years ago, it'd have been difficult. But you're in Aberdeen, I'm in Shropshire. I've done this conversation with people in America. I'm loving it. You're talking to loads of people and getting viewpoints and learning all the time.
So I find that marketing is one of the most sensitive functions of a business, right? And from
Yes.
my experience leading business operations, I've observed that there's sometimes very deep emotional connections that business owners have for their brand. So I've seen some founders interfere too much with what the marketing team is doing, especially when it's like an agency, because the agency is seen more as an external party, and that can sometimes make the founders have less patience with these agencies, instead of trusting the process. But what are your thoughts about that?
Yes. So we actually changed our business model because of that. So we are principally a performance marketing agency. So we're not a brand agency. And now branding is important, but if you want to actually get sales in, which a lot of startups and early stage entrepreneurs want, is business. They want sales, they want leads, but they'll go to a branding agency who'll go, oh right, well this is great, and they'll pay a lot of money and they'll get quite a professional thing, but it won't bring in the leads. It's lead generation they want, not marketing. So one of the problems is, first of all, they've selected the wrong agency. They've bought into the the fancy branding, the fancy offices, and on all the promises that they'll get. But the thing is, that's a branding agency, and actually, what you want to be working with is somebody who can put boots on the ground and get you those leads in. The reason why we've changed our marketing is from we're a marketing agency to we provide fractional chief marketing officer services, is that we are then plugged in directly into the senior management team. Because one of the problems we found is that people who thought they knew marketing were telling us what to do. And we'd say, that's not going to work. And they'll go, no, that's what I want. That's what I'm paying for. Okay, that's what you're paying for. That's what we'll do. Whereas we come in as a fractional chief marketing officer, we're actually head to head with the senior management teams. And we can then work with them and we can work with their strategy and say, right, okay. And because everybody's got different preferences. So I had a meeting yesterday with a very good HR consultancy, a sport agency. We actually buy their services and they've come to us for marketing support. And she doesn't like networking. The strategy, sort of traditional advice is, well, you should be out networking. But she didn't like that. So we have to get into her head and go, right, okay, we're not going to do networking. We're going to do X, Y, and Z. And we work with them at the strategic level to then work out what we need to be doing in terms of implementation. And that's where, and we're talking about recruitment. When you recruit a fractional person, you can still use Indeed. There are specialist forums as well. You will get CVs from around the world. So, use the AI tools at Indeed to do the filtering, get to the point where you want. But you need to follow the same rigor and process as you would hiring a permanent recruit, as you would a fractional person. You when you go onto Fiverr, which is one of our favorite platforms, but there's Upwork and Freelancer as well. And you're looking at the profiles, you've got to build a sixth sense as to, is this person genuine? Because that's quite a lot of the time there might be somebody fronting it up, but actually it's not one person. You've got like a team of people in a village somewhere, and so the results will be more unpredictable. Find yourself and what you can't do with a permanent employee, but that you can with a freelancer, is give them a small job to do. How does that small job do? How are they on time? Is it a good quality, etc. But it's actually a lot easier with a freelancer, just do a very small job.
Amazing. Awesome. So I want us to move over to sales and marketing, which is where you specialize. I think that there are quite a number of organizations that are still treating sales and marketing as separate departments. Yeah, particularly in early stage businesses. First off, Peter, what is the difference between both of them, and what should alignment between sales and marketing look like?
Yeah. So this happens in big businesses as well. So if you're a startup watching this,
Okay,
then going, Oh, I can't get my head around it. Trust me, there's some bigger organizations that can't get their head around it either. So marketing is about making sure you've got sort of the branding right and that the values are there and the website works. It's about, for me, marketing is about generating the leads, generating the inquiries. So they handle that part of the funnel. And then when a lead comes in, an inquiry comes in, it's then passed to the sales team to convert it. What I've seen a lot of companies make the mistake of is thinking that the salespeople are there to generate the leads. They are not. A salesperson is a very expensive person in your business and one of the hardest to recruit, to be honest.
Yeah, that's
A number
true.
of times I've been brought in to look at sales stats and the sort of typical thing is the business owner says, well, they're out there networking and they're doing stuff. They're active, but I'm saying, well, are they converting any of these things? And they go, well, actually, they're prospecting. Oh, okay, so they've got to go and find their own leads, have they? So a typical salesperson is what, 30K, put them in a car, all that sort of stuff. 60K out of your business, you can double the salary, and that's how much they're costing you. To have them, using LinkedIn and all these sorts of things, cold prospecting is a complete waste of time. That's what marketing's job is. Marketing's job is to get the brand right and make sure that the business is seen in all the right places, but also to put devices in place. A website that converts. A number of people who come to us as an agency, oh, can we have a website? Yeah, okay. The words are acronyms, ICP, Ideal Customer Profile. And they go, everyone, we're going to sell to everyone. Well, if you try to sell everyone, you sell nothing, you sell to no one. You'll have done this with your advice. You'll have said, right, okay, who specifically are we going to sell to? Who's the pain points? And all that belongs in marketing, doing the value proposition, getting the messaging right, and then ultimately getting that communication so that people pick up the phone. Well, probably not these days, but go onto the website, go onto an ad and say, hey, yeah, we're interested. They can do outbound. They can do lead generation. They're using LinkedIn. They can use telesales. They can make sure the customer database. But at the end of the day, the salespeople or the person who's doing the sales needs inquiries. And their time, they're expensive people. It could be the founder who's having to do those sales. Their time's expensive. So they need to be able to then take that inquiry and turn that into a closed deal. You see it a lot where the marketing team are doing their thing, because it's nice to do or whatever, and the sales team have got no leads, and then the sales team are getting beaten up because they've not got the inquiries to convert. One of the things I came across recently, there's lots of acronyms coming from America. So you've got CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, which is the services we provide as a business that Charlie provides. And then we've got a CRO, Chief Revenue Officer, which is, if you like, head of sales. The one I've just come across, and I'll probably adopt for myself, is Chief Commercial Officer, because Chief Commercial Officer looks after marketing and sales. And then we can make sure that those two funnels, the marketing funnel and the sales funnel, are actually joined up. And if you're dealing with any volume, the sales team should have a CRM system. So if the marketing team's working well, they're pulling on the leads, and then the sales team are frittering them away because they're not following up. I mean, how many times have you been to an exhibition or heard of people going to exhibitions and going, yeah, we had lots of inquiries. And then you go, well, how many have converted into sales? We haven't recorded it. We haven't. It's like, what? You just spent £5,000 or £10,000 on an exhibition. And then nobody's actually taken that data and done something with it.
I think because these days businesses are really focused on numbers, not exactly about value. And so you tend to see, people focusing on traction, focusing on the number of downloads, but how many of those downloads are converting into actual revenue? That's where the problem is. So yeah, insights like this is helpful. And that chief commercial officer just helps to balance them both. I think it's needed job role for organizations. So as an experienced chief marketing officer, chief revenue officer, if you were to advise someone who has just started leading a team as maybe head of marketing, head of sales, what metrics or signals should that person look at when deciding if their marketing efforts are actually converting into sales?
Yeah. So we take the marketing bit first. So the top of the funnel, and you might have sort of, number of visitors to the site and so forth, because that is a useful signifier as to whether you're getting enough traffic. Because there's a thing called the buyer's triangle, and only 1 to 2% of your market are actually ready to buy. So what happens then, because this stat used to happen when we used to post mail, you'd send out a mail shot of 100 letters, you might get one response. And the same is for websites, for Google Ads, for anything. And it's all, the theory is in the buyer's pyramid that only a few percent of your market is actually ready to do something. So when you get a website, the stats can be worse than 1% who will actually do something. Google Ads is about 1 to 2 to 3%. And of course, every time you put a step in, that percentage also applies. So you might have 1,000 visitors to the website, 10 might do something, but only one will actually click. So that's why when you have a website, you need to make sure that make sure your website converts. So you might have a diagnostic, you might have a white paper, you might have a video. So it's how many people have watched the video, how many people have downloaded something, how many, but ideally you're looking at sort of how many people have taken action on the site. Is that a key event? And then from that key event, you're looking at conversions. And these are the stats you can get from Google Analytics, by the way. So you should have that funnel, sort of number of sessions, number of key events, and a number of conversions. Conversions are hopefully somebody placing an inquiry of some kind, or asking for a quote, asking for, sort of more information, but something you can grab and put into your CRM. So
Amazing.
at that point, and hopefully you're not collecting random inquiries, hopefully they're marketing qualified inquiries. Yeah. So you've got your marketing qualified inquiries, then they'll drop into, and let's presume it's like a business-to-business sale, so there's a human involved at this point. So somebody picks up the phone and goes, "Oh, hi, how can I help you?" And does a diagnostic of some kind. Everything should be a solution sell. I mean, one of the advantages of being a startup founder is that you're a problem solver. So if you put a problem solver in front of a person with a problem, generally they'll sell. They don't have to be salespeople. They just have to be able to problem solve. And engineers and people like, and founders, they call it founders' eyes. So founders shouldn't, I've heard a lot of founders say, "Well, I can't sell." Yeah, but you can problem solve. All you need is that person in front of you, and you will solve their problem and they will buy from you. So then you're looking at, sort of, now there's a cost to that marketing. So you've got a cost of acquisition that you need to track. You need to understand the lifetime value, LTV, of your customers. Tesco's, when you walk into Tesco's or any supermarket, you've got approximately £250,000 on your head as the lifetime value of a customer. And so that's why they can spend quite a bit of money trying to acquire you as a customer. That's why they have retention programs, because to Tesco's, you're worth £250,000.
Amazing.
But for a startup, you're looking for recurring business models, things where you can go back to them with more services, different services, the same service because you might be servicing a car, something like that. And then add that up. What is the lifetime value of that person? So if as long as your customer acquisition is small compared to that value, sales lead time matters. How quickly does that inquiry turn into a sale? If you've got a long sales lead time, you better have a very good CRM system to make sure that you're constantly touching base with them, not to annoy them. So sales lead time is a good metric.
Interesting. Let's move on to modern technology. In your view, what does it mean to use AI intelligently in marketing today? And what skill shift must the traditional digital marketers make for them to stay relevant? Because right now, if you're not catching up, you're going to be left behind.
Yeah. So the first one we'll start with is ChatGPT. It is a very useful tool, very useful. So like I say, I use it for content generation. I'll use it for idea generation. I use it just to ask questions. Not the sort of stuff you just put into Google. Google's still really great at that because Google got its own AI engine. If you're looking for something specific and looking for a product or a service or some piece of information, then Google is still excellent, especially with its now AI tool that's got on it. ChatGPT is good because it remembers the conversation. I don't specifically go out to train it. some people go, "Oh, you've got to put all this stuff in." Well, actually, it gets used to you. It writes now like I want it to write. So for building a website, I write in a very educational, informational style, and a lot of the websites that I've been involved in use that style. But you can change it. You can say write in a salesy kind of way. I've gained inspiration from other places, and I've used that inspiration and put it into ChatGPT and say, please do write me something based on what you've just read. When I was doing the strategic lead at Bender, I used a thing called Perplexity. It searches several of these sorts of engines and came back with a lot more references. You do have to check this stuff though. Earlier days, I put an article together. I thought, this looks all right. And I sent it to the client. The client went, have you checked these references? And the references, although look really great, you actually read through them, didn't have the actual content in. So luckily I know the guy, and we went, yeah, mea culpa. We've changed our processes. And there are specific programs that do logo design. I then I have to do quite a few presentations to people, and I also do a lot more videos. So this is where I really becomes very powerful. On the lead generation front on LinkedIn, we use a tool called Copilot AI. It's not the Microsoft one. It's a separate tool. What that does is, so it sends out invitations. It then has an automated response saying, hey, thank you for connecting and so forth. And then, of course, the tool I love is on Zoom Companion. It does the notes for you. And then there's the Fireflies, which is, I think, a more sophisticated version, which some of my team members use. So there's a bunch of really good tools out there. And a lot of it is trusting to the process. It's Copilot, which is a Microsoft one, or the one we use, is a great phrase. And they call it human in the loop. You can't just go, do something on AI and then chuck it out. It needs thinking about. So, for example, one of the things we have to check for is any documents are the A4 page set, because it's all US letter. American spelling. Weirdly, when I was a kid, 60 years ago, nobody bothered about the Z and the S's. I like the Z, but that's now American, and we all have to use S's. Yes. But actually, I like the Z. It's great, but because it's American, we've got to do UK English. What happened? What happened in those 50 years?
You are so right. Okay, now, if you are enjoying this conversation and you want more behind the scenes insights, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel, because it helps us to grow and bring you even more valuable content from experts that you want to hear from. So thanks for being here. Peter, I'm just going to ask a follow-up question since we're talking about AI. I mean, now we are seeing the rise in synthetic media, deepfakes, AI generated avatars, just like you talked about, voice cloning. Everything is making their way into marketing. So for marketers, what are those real opportunities for them in using those tools creatively and efficiently? And then on the flip side, what ethical, or reputational risks should leaders be actively thinking about before adopting them?
Okay, so let's go for the avatars, because, we're all seeing the Coldplay issue out, and everybody's doing avatar memes of that particular incident. It's getting harder and harder to tell whether what's real and what's not. Ethically, if you are going to be an avatar like I've done with myself, your avatar should not do anything that you would not do as a person, and all the ethical rules apply. It does mean that the scammers can get a lot sharper. You've got to be a lot more astute. And I think, training of staff, because I used to run IT departments for people a long time ago, and scamming's not changed. It's just getting more sophisticated. And even the most brazen of scams, some people would fall for. So it's making sure that anybody who's using the tools and the technology within your business, understand those ethics, because it is really important. It's also important for everyone to work out what's real, what's not real, and that might actually mean you go, wow, that's really great. If it sounds too good, it is. That's not changed. From the snake oil salesman of the Wild West, and when you had cowboys and Indians, to now and in the future. If it's too good to be true, it is. It's interesting that BBC have set up BBC Verify, so they don't take things at the word, they go and check it out. And there's plenty of ways of checking things out. So it's your keyboard away, a few seconds away of checking something out, because there are a lot of people out there wanting to take your money, take your life, etc. And yeah, you've just got to be wary of things that sounds great.
Thank you so much for that. I want us to move over now to go-to-market strategy, because when serving customers as startups, one of the pain points or one of the key areas is how to launch in new markets. I think it's a bit easier to start a business, but when it comes to expansion, that's when startups tend to have issues. The funding a bit is there, but there's also the strategic knowledge about how to expand the business operations. If you were to advise founders, what practical advice would you give them when they are in the process of launching into new markets?
So we're a global business, but in order to break into the US, which is now 50% of our income, my daughter actually lives in New Jersey and commutes into New York for meetings and so on. Because it's very easy to think, oh, well, it'll work in whatever other country. But they have different cultures, they have different values, they have different ways of doing things. So, for example, if you go to the Middle East, I work with a company getting into the Middle East, and he found it a real shock. He got a great product. Technically, it works out. It would work in the Middle East, but you have to get to know people. But as a Westerners, we'll just go, oh, let's do business. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that works, and get on with it. Middle East, you have to build that relationship. There's no talking about business first. It's to really understand that country and how you want to get into it. If you've got sort of a unique product or one product, so for example, one of my manufacturers actually sells their stuff all around the world, but it's different products for different markets. So one of their biggest customers is in Australia, so the language is fine, but then there's the ways of doing business that's different. So you've actually physically, I would suggest, physically got to go out there, study the books, study the YouTube, but also visit the place, just to get a feel for how that works. And say where we sold it, Charlie now lives in America, so she's immersed in the environment. But it can be challenging.
I think what you just mentioned about understanding the people, I think it's so important. I can't overemphasize that. It's really important to understand the culture and the language. Yes.
Involved in a Facebook campaign to sell beauty products to Middle Eastern women. That was seriously hard. The amount of research we had to do just outweighed, and the effort. Every single image had to be really carefully checked to make sure that we didn't break any cultural norms. We gave up in the end because the amount of work involved didn't reflect how much we were getting paid. But it's we ran some campaigns in Spain, and again that was less of an effort, and that worked out all right. But yes, it was doing global social media is very challenging.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely. So, Peter, you are running a training program called Vision to Success. Can you tell us more about it? And, what recurring blind spots do you notice amongst your service users? And how is your platform addressing those blind spots?
Okay. So we work with a lot of businesses and kept getting the sort of same recurring problems. During COVID, we were reinventing ourselves, and so we paid as soon as we could. We got access to a studio and film some courses. One was LinkedIn lead generation, one was understanding social media, and I then did some stuff with my avatar after that, because what we found was it was actually very hard to get noticed with courses and things. Everybody goes, oh, make a lot of money on courses, and there's a thing called Udemy, but then you did something crazy and they sort of priced everything at $10. Well, it just blew the economics away, and people who were making $30,000 or $40,000 a month Suddenly we're making, $300 a month and so on. And it completely trashed their market. It was an unbelievable decision. And I wanted to put something back into society. I've done okay. I'm not super rich, or I'm not driving a Maserati and got my yacht and so on. But I still wanted to put something back. And so we created the Vision Success Hub, which on it has got a lot of free courses. And we're linked to a thing called GM Skills Map, where people can go on and search for courses and they land up on our system. And we're also obviously optimized for the web and things. So if you type in Vision Success, you can sign up to our free platform and get access to quite a lot of free marketing courses. And if somebody wants to have a chat about their marketing, very happy to. Not looking to sell to people unless they actually want to buy. But for half an hour of my time, Zoom. Since COVID, I don't have to jump in a car to go anywhere. It's just half an hour of my time. And generally I can give people enough stuff to make a difference. I mean, we obviously do coaching and things like that as well. But the platform itself has got a lot of material on it now. I'm just doing a series of posts on how to improve your sales. So lots more information on there on that. And we've also got a free networking platform. I believe in people getting together, mixing, learning from each other, and so I set up the Power Networkers Hub, and that enables people to come along once a month, every second Thursday, 4:00. And join a group of people who are looking to find new business. It's just me putting back and trying to make a difference.
I have been on the networking platform first time, and I had a really good time interacting with other professionals that have, similar interests, and also learning from other people in different industries. So I think it's a very good initiative. So if you want to join the platform, or you want to enroll in the Vision to Success course, I would leave the link in the description so you can always access it. So Peter, looking ahead, what do you believe will define success in marketing and sales over the next, say, 5 years, especially with AI and automation that's continuing to advance?
Yeah, so you're going to have to do things no different, actually. 40 years ago, it took 2 weeks to get a response from a mail campaign. Now it's a few hours. The response times are getting shorter. You need to be quicker, faster, more agile, and be more focused. There's so much noise out there. You cannot sell to everyone. You can sell to the people who've got the biggest pain point for whatever product or service that you have. And if you focus on that, you should be able to continue developing your skills and services. It's all about innovation. If they could make an innovation department or function, but it has to be in everything you do. Gone are the days you could go, right, it's all working. I can sit back on the beach and chill out. Forget it. You're either in the kitchen doing it or you're out. There's no halfway house these days. And it's all about listening to Bookie, getting new ideas, constantly learning and going, oh yeah, I can give that a try. Talking to other people, joining networking groups, and just talking to other business owners. What are they doing? So for example, for agency owners, there is an agency meetup every month, and we've got agencies from all around the world that I can listen to. What are they doing? Yeah, I haven't thought about that, because it's moving incredibly quickly. And please don't just hire somebody. Oh, they can do a bit of social media. That's not going to work.
Thanks so much for sharing those insights. And my final question to you, how can people contact you, Peter, if they want?
If you just want to drop me an email at growth@kubuk.net, go to the website, kub-uk.net, and then we've got visiontosuccess.co.uk, or just type in Vision to Success, you should find that, and then sign up onto the course. And if you want to really want to grow your business and meet different business owners, then come to Power Networkers Hub. Again, you type that into Google and you should find us.
All right, then that's it for this episode of Business Backstage. I hope you are walking away with not just your notes, but clarity, especially with how sales, marketing, and AI are not isolated functions, but they are interconnected tools for sustainable business growth. A huge thank you to Peter Dickinson for bringing such clear-eye insight into the table. So if you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to subscribe, comment, share this episode with someone in your network, somebody who needs to hear it. And as always, if you want more behind the scenes conversation with experts who build the foundations of great businesses, you know where to find us. I'm Bukola Osuntuyi, and I'll see you on the next episode. Bye.
Okay, thank you.